Graham, I know that's a super weird question for me to ask, the title of this, but it's a serious question. It's one that you should consider, which is, what would you do if they brought the power grid down? And by they, I mean if the government purposefully brought the power grid down. And I'm not asking that question for fun. I'm asking that question because the World Economic Forum is predicting that a cyber pandemic, you can look this up, they've been running exercises about it this year, is inevitable. You're probably saying, what is a cyber pandemic? It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we even talking about? Well, first and foremost, the reason I'm even paying attention to the World Economic Forum and their exercises is because they notoriously, in 2019, ran an exercise for a coronavirus pandemic that oddly all became true. I mean, without one slight difference, they said that the coronavirus was going to escape from a wet market in South America. Of course, when the coronavirus swept, website is still up and they say, the coronavirus pandemic is inevitable, and then boom, it happened the very next year. So people say it's a conspiracy theory. Don't really care. The point is that they made the prediction, they called it inevitable, and then it happened immediately. So for me personally, that signals to me that I should probably pay attention the next time the World Economic Forum makes a prediction and calls it inevitable. And lo and behold, they are predicting that a coronavirus pandemic, a cyber pandemic, is going to happen, and that it is once again inevitable. So they made the prediction, they called it inevitable, and then it happened immediately. So for me personally, that signals to me that I should probably pay attention the next time the World Economic Forum makes a prediction and calls it inevitable. And lo and behold, they are predicting that a coronavirus pandemic, a cyber pandemic, is going to happen, and that it is once again inevitable. So if you look into the exercise that they have run this year, I believe they ran it in July. They've been meeting and talking about the cyber pandemic, what it would look like. Essentially, their idea is that they're going to have to sanitize the internet because a bug, think of it as like a coronavirus for your computer, is going to sweep globally, and the only way they're going to be able to stop this bug from infecting everything is to effectively shut down the internet, right? And they were talking about bringing down the power grid in an effort to do this. So imagine the government bringing down the power grid, and you would not have access to anything that required an electrical charge. If this sounds crazy, dystopian, and like a nightmare to you, first and foremost, this happens in other countries, right? Obviously, in Cuba, when the government needs to stop people from communicating, they just bring down the power grid, right? When the uprisings were happening in Cuba, I believe that was earlier this year. Coronavirus time feels like, I don't know if it was the end of last year or early this year. They just brought down the entire electrical grid. But of course, Western nations would never do something like that. If they do it, it's because they need to do it, not because they're becoming evil communist dictators, but because they would need to do it for our benefit. They were talking about the government bringing down the power grid, and until they come up with a vaccine, I'm not kidding, this is their words, not mine, a vaccine of sorts for the internet, where they would be able to cleanse it and purge it of all of these things that are making it vulnerable. Among those things, they brought up Bitcoin, which is so funny. That one thing that the government can't get a handle on, that is representing a threat to them and the financial markets, their control of the financial markets, would be Bitcoin. And suddenly, in running the simulation, they realized that Bitcoin, could potentially be a problem. If you think I'm kidding, you can look this up. It is called a cyber pandemic. And it's something that every single person should be paying attention to, just in case they magically get it right again, like they did about the coronavirus pandemic. It's good for us as citizens to pay attention to that and to do what we can to prepare. And so I've been having all these discussions with my husband, seriously, like what if they actually did this? Like, what would we do? And it's made me realize that we're a very weak generation of people. When I'm talking about weak, I'm talking about millennials, I'm talking about, perhaps even the baby boomers, of how little we actually learned about survival. And we so often talk about how the governments are right now teaching kids nothing, right? These kids are learning about race, and they're learning about, pornographic material in school as we're discovering day by day. They're learning about how to be woke, and we're like, these kids are so dumb because they're not learning math, they're not learning engineering, and they're not going to be able to do anything in life because they're not learning any hard academics, any hard skills. And I've talked about that so much until I started talking about this potential cyber pandemic, and I realized actually my generation was also dumbed down, because you can read all the books in the world, every book in the entire universe, right? But if you don't actually know how to grow your own food, if you don't actually know how to survive off of your own land, how smart are you? We have convinced ourselves, especially me, I grew up in Connecticut, like coastal elites, very close to New York City. Like, we have convinced ourselves, and the people that live in these cities, Los Angeles, people that live in New York, as they're saying, we need the Green New Deal, get rid of this, so we don't want to be dependent on our own energy. Like, we'll send it overseas. We have convinced ourselves that we're so forward and we're so progressive that we're actually regressive. We don't know anything. We don't know how to grow our own food. The majority of us know how to grow our food. I have made it my entire initiative since moving to Tennessee is for my husband and I to be able to do everything by ourselves. Fortunately for me, my husband is a hunter. So you can take your picket signs and take them somewhere else, because I don't care. My husband hunts. Good. That means that we know how to survive a little bit if we're in the wild, right? He's hunted his entire life. I said to my husband, I need to learn how to grow vegetables. Like, this is the most important thing. I need to be able to learn how to grow vegetables. We're going to get some chickens. Like, I never thought I would say this. Like, we're going to be getting chickens next year because I want to be able to know that we have food on our own property. I do not want to be a dependent. So for so long, I had in my head that if you're not on welfare, right, then you're not government dependent, but that is so wrong, right? If you don't know how to survive, if you do not know how to grow your own food, if you don't know how to make a fire, I mean, think about everything you would have to know if the power grid went down, right? If you don't have a generator, if you don't have solar panels, I mean, I'm just spitting here, but like, think about all of the things. Actually imagine your life if the power grid was taken down. Like, imagine how many things you'd have to know, right? And then I was saying to my cousin earlier, I was saying how weird it is every time if I have a question about something, even if I'm working on a recipe, I'm like, oh my God, what is the ingredient for this again? And I Google it. Everything you have to Google, you don't actually know. You're relying on the internet to tell you something that you don't actually have stored in your own brain, right? So we're so convinced that we're so forward and we're so progressive because we can get an answer fired back at us in a couple of seconds. But in reality, we don't know anything. If you have to ask Google, you don't possess the information within your own mind. So I said to my husband and I said to my cousin, like, I want to start buying books, right? The recipes are no good if they're online, right? The knowledge of how to grow your own plants is no good if you're looking it up online. I want copies of hard books. I want the books and the knowledge in my house, even chemistry, basic chemistry, and basic means of taking care of yourself. Like, what do you actually know about colloidal silver? What do you know about how to treat something, what your body actually needs? All of these things that we thought were so backwards and that big pharma saved the day because we can just go get a prescription. Well, what if you needed to create your own prescription? What do you actually know about how to survive by yourself? What do you know that you can take that will make you better? If you get a burn, if you get sick, what are the things that actually help you in your own household? What can you have? What can you possess that will make you better? All of this stuff, like, you should be thinking about now, right? You should be thinking about it now. This is not a conspiracy. This is common sense, right? If you don't know how to survive, how would you convert salt water into drinking water? Do you know how to do that? Isn't it funny that all these people that live in between New York and LA, people that the media has smeared as backwards, as not knowing anything, right? These Bible Belt Southern Christians with their farms and their goats and their sheep, this whole idea that they've tried to create about people in the South and people in the Midwest. And these people are so much smarter than these journalists and these media members who sit up on their high horses and talk down to them. Because you know what? If the government brought down the power grid, these people would be just fine. They would be unaffected. They'd say, yeah, you can take your latte and your Starbucks all the way back to New York and LA. We're good here. And it's something that I think you should especially be thinking about now for all of you people who voted for Biden and actually thought you could just keep printing money. And now you're realizing, oh, wait, we can't. And gas prices are through the roof. And I don't really know what I'm going to do as I'm watching the government actually impoverish me, right? It's something to really think about when you start talking about the amount of dependency that is being increased upon the government, which when I say we, I'm talking about conservatives, obviously knew this was coming. We understood that you can't just print money. Obviously, the government cannot just shut down your business and say, oh, it's okay, we're going to give you a couple $100s here, there, everywhere, and think that they were not going to eventually have to come up with that money at a different time. And you're seeing that impacted in so many things. And I don't know, it's just a conversation that I've been having with myself and with my family around me, that like, if this actually happens, if their predictions become true, what would we actually do? What would you actually do? What do you actually know how to do? What do you know about anything in the wild? Could you survive in the wild? Could you survive in your own house? For how long could you survive in your own house? And I've been covering this a lot on my show, as I've been paying attention to a lot of the World Economic Forum agenda, and all the meetings that we're having with the same suspects that seem to always be so prepared and aware of the things that are happening. And I've realized that big pharma has made us a lot more ignorant. The school systems have made us a lot more ignorant. And it's not just the generations beneath us. It started with us. So that's it. That's all I want to say. It was just a random thought that was on my mind that I wanted to share. If you agree, then maybe stock up on some stuff in your house that you might need. Maybe buy some books. Yeah. Anyways, that was all I want to say. Quick little rant for you guys. Bye.